So the big question is this: how do investors like us who don't have a PhD in finance or millions to start investing, how do we grow our bank accounts to build real savings and retirements and yet still have the time to do what we really love? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer.
Hey, welcome to the Stock Market Secrets Podcast. Super excited about today. We're going to talk about resources versus resourcefulness. Some really freaking cool stuff. So I was in there's this really cool thing Google does where they'll give you a 10 grand ad credit to go ahead and work with a nonprofit if you're in an accredited university, which is awesome because I do work with Catalyst, which is a nonprofit. So I'm working towards getting that, then helping get more people into the world of personal finance and investments to improve their financial situation and build real savings and retirements. And so because of that, yesterday I went to, they have a building, and pretty much everyone, general consensus is that this building is the building for business. If I need to find a professor of marketing, which I need to find to just kind of like sign off and say, hey, I'm going to sponsor this kid. He's a cool guy, which is sweet. So I go there yesterday for English. I just kind of ask, if there's like a good professor of marketing, and the other people I could really talk to is security, and they kind of had no clue. So then I just kind of like walked upstairs and sort of started just asking kids or professors if I could find them, if they knew of a professor of marketing. So I do that, and unfortunately, like some people, no one really knew, which is totally cool. Not a big deal at some point, right? So not a big deal. So today I talked to my teacher in sociology, right? And he says, if you don't know what a marketing go down to look up the guys online and see if you can just, cold call them or visit them, which I did this morning, right? So this morning I looked up, Georgia Tech marketing, and then I found that there's a class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So today's a Wednesday, so I guess they're not there today, and the class ends about midway through sociology. So I'll probably, call a guy and see what's up. There wasn't a phone number online, but there was a classroom number. So I'm thinking either we'll visit them or email them, something like that. Would be pretty sweet to be able to do that. So with that, it's really cool because it doesn't take any resources to do that. You just have to be resourceful and try to get everything you can out of all you got in the environment that you're in, which is super, super important. And it's kind of like a recurring theme that I've seen a lot when I think about, how I've worked up and into financial markets over time. It was tough because I was working, like a minimum wage job, so I didn't have this huge amount of money to start with, right? And I had to kind of figure out what is, the best way to really get this stuff going without necessarily having a whole bunch of money to invest in, like, trainings or seminar or whatever. And at the time, there wasn't really a whole lot of quality education, right? So I just sort of had to figure it out. And it was kind of weird because I didn't have resources to go out and hire a trainer or a coach or something like that. But, I was resourceful, right? So what I would do is I would go to Google and I would look up very, very specific questions. And every day I would just spend my time pouring through a bunch of financial websites and learning more and more and more about personal finances and investment, because I really, really wanted to take control of my financial future and learn how to build a winning asset portfolio that would serve me for years and years to come. Because that's such a powerful ability to have in the marketplace. So, because I didn't have the resources, I got resourceful. Google is your best friend, but at the same time, you gotta remember that you're trading your time for, that knowledge. So, very, very cool stuff, very great opportunity. And then after that, Nair ads, I started the company, and about 8 months, we got our front-end product launched to market. And after that, it was like, okay, how do we get clients, right? So I didn't know a whole lot about marketing at the time. So I just sort of like, okay, well, why don't we just kind of like walk into these advertising firms? So I would like direct mail a bunch of newspapers and then go call a bunch of ad representative guys, which was sweet, because you had to figure out how to get into the marketplace and be resourceful, because I didn't have a whole bunch of resources to go and blow on venture ads or traditional marketing. You just kind of have to like make it happen. You make it happen by using the resources you have to the best of your ability. So then some really interesting stuff that was growing, and it kind of reminded me of Calvin Klein when he was starting to sell shoes and to grow his company. He was building out this whole van, and this van was, he was just going to sell shoes from this van, and everyone was going to come, they were going to buy his shoes, he was going to put it in front of this big convention center. It was going to be awesome. But the problem was he didn't have the resources to actually go out and purchase a stand or a booth at the event. So what he did was he tried to park his truck out front. He got kicked out, and he said, look, you can't park your truck in front of this convention center and sell your stuff unless you're in construction business or you're making a movie. And definitely wasn't in construction business, so he decides to go downtown and apply for a permit to make a movie. So he creates Calvin Klein Productions, which is, I think, ironically kind of still what the title of his company is today, which is really, really just shows where he came from. And then he gets his title. So then he comes back with his application, he shows his license, and he says, hey, we're filming a movie, The Making of a Shoe. And that was super inspirational because it showed him, he got out there, sold people a bunch of shoes, sold tons of his stuff at like no cost to him to have a booth. All he did was hire some guys to come and film him with a camera so it looked like he was making a movie. And that was so cool because he just took where he was and didn't let a lack of resources limit him, but rather turned to that resourcefulness that allowed him to get exactly what he wanted from the marketplace without giving up, without putting in a bunch of cash to get a booth or an ad or whatever. And it's really, really interesting stuff because it forces you to like realize that there's definitely a way to do it, and you just have to have the resourcefulness to find a way to do it. So right now, I'm working super hard to find that professor or the group where we can come together and just facilitate, a marketing campaign to get more people into personal finance and investing, because that's what they need in their lives to achieve that financial freedom and build that portfolio. It's going to change their entire financial future to build real savings and retirement, which is so cool. But it doesn't happen unless you can get the word in front of people and create the impact through, marketing. And so, what I want you guys to take from this is that there's like definitely a way to do something. And it might look expensive at first, but what you can do is kind of step back and say, okay, what's the shortest route, cheapest route, the best route to get to this destination that's going to be the most efficient use of time and energy to create the result that you want, right? And it just kind of depends on what you're doing or where you're at. But a lot of times you'll find that there are these hidden ways that a lot of people will ignore because it's not necessarily a status quo and it's hiding away. And your job, if you really want to get out there and crush it, is to figure out what those ways are and then leverage them to take advantage of the more difficult situations, the tougher areas that other people would traditionally ignore. And I mean, it's the same with so many different industries, like with sales, like with any area where there's a whole segment that's systematically left out of traditional practices, right? So if it's like the really tough client to sell, the really, really difficult market sphere to break into, right? I know with finance it's super tough. There's a whole bunch of competition, but maybe there's less competition in very, very specific markets like 9 to noon trading strategies, right? Facilitating, technical analysis. 2 magic words that changed my life. And when you can get in and understand new ways to add value and new ways to actually, facilitate the growth that you desire in any given situation, you're going to be so much more able to have an effective campaign, have an effective outreach where instead of, having to sit back and blow a lot of money, then see horse and blow a lot of money, see horse, you can test the market first, right? So I know a really good way with this was, before I went out and decided to write 9 to noon, I didn't have a whole lot of resources to get market data, nor did I have a whole lot of resources to figure out what material was the best, what material had the biggest impact. So I went around the local community and we started teaching, stock classes in the area, right? So I know I taught one at my school, which was kind of a culmination of a lot of the work I had been doing. And in that one, it was really great because I could see, first of all, how to market it with like flyers, word of mouth, all that stuff, because it was, more of a local based event. And at the same time, I was also able to give away these insane results at no cost to attendees, and then they would take it and they'd apply it. And I mean, some of the most amazing success stories came from that. And inspiration really for the book was all because I went out there and did a lot of work for free and did a lot of teaching and educating for free. And that's something you can do, especially at the beginning when maybe you don't have the resources, but you're resourceful and you want to teach, or you want to, break into a new market space that maybe you wouldn't be traditionally given instant access to. I know that was after the crypto crash, and I was doing a whole lot of trading, but I was still in high school, right? So, traditionally, it maybe didn't look, as amazing to have that, me teaching stuff, just because a lot of people think, just because age and history, and it's just a whole lot of barriers to overcome, right? You have to prove that, hey, I got this. I've been through the journey, right? I started at zero, just like so many people in the American economy that just don't know about financial investments and how to really create those real savings and retirements. But I went through these years and years of growth, of learning, struggles, of research, going through the stuff that no one was talking about, so that I could figure out the important things, figure out what worked. And it all kind of culminated pretty recently in a book called Get Rich Carefully by Jim Cramer. I had friends who recommended it. It was really, really great. But something that was really interesting about it was a lot of the things in that book were things that I talked about in 9 to noon. But if I was someone new and I didn't know what they meant, the book made no sense. In 9 to noon, right, we break down exactly what everything means in the order it's introduced, so that you know how to create a portfolio before you're trying to analyze a stock, or what a retirement fund is best to create before you talk about how to actually diversify. There's just so many examples where you go right from you start at the basics, right, and then you work it up. You work it up and you establish an insane level of value to work up because you present it so compellingly and valuable. It's crazy cool stuff. But when I was reading his work, it was really interesting because he just kind of started out with some, tough stuff. And it was difficult. I feel like if I'd never, learned about finance or anything like that, I mean, he goes super hard into these are companies, this is what they do. This is it's really, really insane because he doesn't actually break anything down. It's just like analyzing performance and sort of talking, in these really big buzzwords of the industry, which you can get, once you understand it, but it's really, really difficult to start at the complexity. And then at the end of the book, he starts to introduce some charts and some graphs that show stocks and that show, technical analysis at a very crude extent through indicators and trend lines. And it was interesting because presented all these charts at once, and there was like 12 of them. And then after that, he went back and retroactively explained what each thing meant. But instead of like explaining why things moved the way they did, or like how setups worked, it was more like, this is the setup, this is what happened. You can ask your broker to learn more about this information. And it's like, for most people, I feel like that's how the traditional financial market comes across at first, because it's a lot of information to take in, and it's a lot of really, really amazing stuff. But at the same time, the way it's presented, the way it's introduced to so many people is very, very complex. And it requires you to almost, to an extent, like already know what you're talking about, which with people I had no clue, right? It was so difficult to get into it because most of the content in the space was like geared towards people that were already insanely great at trading or really good at managing their own portfolios, or investment advisors, right? I hate that word now. I just can't stand to think that people who just don't have access to quality education are paying in the long term, upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars in long-term gains, right? If you look at a 2% management fee over 40 years, I mean, that can literally cost your portfolio 6 figures. And the only reason that happens is because it's this insane educational barrier to entry into finance. And a lot of people just don't have the resources to go out and get a degree in finance. They don't have the time to get in like a course, right? It's really ridiculous. I don't know if you guys remember, I was talking to a professor at University of Chicago, and she kind of like went through my book, and she was like, this is the stuff that she was teaching her juniors and her seniors in college. And I've had another professor, same thing, right? Same PhD guy. He says this is what they learn in senior year of college. Like, college at U Chicago costs like 60 grand, 50 grand a year or something. Like, that's $200,000 to learn information that every single American needs to really have that successful portfolio and to create real savings and retirements through the insane magic of compounding and long-term growth in the U.S. stock market. And to a further extent, they don't even like no one teaches 9 to noon trade. On your right, whoa, thanks man, you're amazing. No one really teaches these 9 setups. At least in like school or in most traditional circumstances. It's really, really interesting. It's like no one has a whole grasp on how amazingly powerful it is. And it crushes me to like to see that because it's this whole world opportunity. But a lot of people don't have the resources to go through a college degree that oftentimes won't even get them there. And a lot of times they might not have the resourcefulness to go out and like actually spend freaking years and years searching Google for like how to really do this, and then discipline those principles down, and then actually go through the markets and trade and turn that knowledge into wisdom and experience. Oof, man. Because it's tough and it takes time and it takes practice. And on your left, thank you. And it's just that's why that's why I wrote 9 to Noon, and that's why I'm so immeasurably passionate about getting it into the hands of as many people as possible to change their lives, to really give them that sense of financial security. Because now you don't have to have the resources, right? You don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars. You don't have to have even thousands of thousands. It's just so radically lower the educational barrier to entry into finance. And that's what I'm super passionate about, because you should not have to have an MB or a master's or whatever to create your own portfolio. And I think it's so ridiculous to think that you have to be working under somebody who's passed their Series 7, somebody who's a professional financial advisor to even consider having a trading account, because you just don't need that, right? You can learn, more than most of these guys know. I remember there's this test they call it the Series 7, right? The Series 7 is a test you take to become a financial advisor. And I went through a practice test for it. And like every single question on that test was from like the first 6 chapters of 9 to Noon. And the first 6 chapters are like the establishment, the baseline for, actually getting your portfolio up and running. And then the rest of the book, or at least a lot of it, especially in part 2, and sort of the end of part 1 is about how to really take the basics and then turn them into results, because that's what matters. And that's what a lot of people, I don't think, focus on as much, are the results. And it's like academia focus more on the resources, whereas the people that are actually out there trading, crushing it every day, are focusing more on the resourcefulness. I remember there's this one really, really cool guy. He was behind the trade net, the trading competition. And I don't know exactly. He trades kind of more expensive stocks, and he trades with lower percent gainers. Definitely not 9 to Noon trading, which is, it's just less efficient. And I would never personally trade, like a $300 stock for a day trade, at least 99% of the time, because those stocks are going to be usually about 10 times less volatile than 9 to Noon stocks. But it was really interesting because, he went through the steps, and then he found the value in the marketplace. He was resourceful. He went out and just did it instead of being obsessed over all the resources, which is something that can get a lot of people stuck up. Because at the beginning, you definitely need the resources. The resources are how you learn, but it's the types of resources and the quality of the resources that you acquire and bring into your world that are really going to affect you, especially considering how resourceful you are getting those. I know more recently, I've been working really hard to get 9 to Noon out to more people, to get the message out, because it's just so important to me. And I know it'll change hundreds of thousands of people's lives. And I'm taking a whole lot of marketing courses, right? And it's also really helpful because I do need to get that 25 grand, overcome that PDT rule, which is just bogus. Because, I don't know, I got school 3 days a week during 9 to Noon, and then I'm sort of trying to focus on sales training because it's a difficult situation, especially with some of the capital illiquidity I talked about, I think, the other day in the rain. And I hope those came out well. I know it was kind of a little strange. The audio, I don't know what happened to the audio, but my phone was in my pocket, and then I was like drenched. So I think that might have like messed up some of it. I don't know. But anyway, with the way that you bring your resourcefulness into the market, you're gonna be able to create those resources. And especially when you invest, when you take, I didn't have a whole lot to invest, right? But I was resourceful, and I took what I had, and I figured out where the best value would be to invest in myself through my education, right? So in these programs where you're putting the money in and you're taking out an investment in yourself, in your education, that's going to pay dividends for years and years and years. Those investments are a lot of times harder to make because you don't see immediate results. You have temporary pain, you have temporary discomfort. But if you have the resourcefulness to find the resources to get into them, because you have to have that commitment to yourself, that commitment financially. I know if I gave away 9 to Noon for free, there's zero chance the impact would be as big as I need it to. I just can't help but want it to be for so many people, because I know that you're going to value what you pay for so ridiculously much more than free information online. And that's why when I wrote the book, there's like 50 pages of works cited. And the reason for that, and they're all like 10-point font, 9.8-point font, something like that. And the point for that is like, this is the free information. This is what you would have to go through to really come out with what this book is, alongside years and years of trading knowledge and wisdom and expertise. And it's like, you got to make a conscious decision to invest in yourself, to take you to that next level of personal growth and development, where you're going to have such an insane commitment to yourself, your finances, your future, because you put that stake out there and you say, you know what, I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna produce the results because it matters and because it's gonna absolutely change the way I look at personal finances and investments. So anyway, I hope you guys found this really, really, really valuable and have an amazing day. Get out there and figure out how you can be ridiculously resourceful even if you have a lack of resources. I appreciate it. Have an amazing day. See ya.
Want more stock market secrets? If so, go get your free copy of my best-selling book, 9 to Noon. You can get your free copy plus $11,176 of unannounced bonuses it took me years to uncover completely for free at 9tonoonsecrets.com. Inside 9 to Noon, you'll find the top 38 secrets you can use to double your portfolio every 2 years and make upwards of 10% per trade daily.